On July 10, 2020, 10-year-old Bria Terrell went to sleep at an apartment in Davenport, Iowa. She was spending the night with her 8-year-old half-brother, but when morning broke, she was gone. Her mother, Aisha Langford, immediately called 911. Coming straight from her overnight shift in her work uniform, Aisha arrived at the apartment in a state of panic, realizing no one knew where her hearing and vision-impaired daughter had gone. That panic quickly turned into targeted anger. The adult responsible for watching the children was Henry Dinkins, the boy's father. But when Henry realized Bria was missing, he didn't call the police. He simply drove around looking for her himself, leaving Aisha furious at the inexplicable delay. Investigators arrived to find a highly vulnerable child missing in an unfamiliar neighborhood. At the center of the scene stood her primary caretaker, acting evasive and defensive, refusing to explain why he kept quiet while the critical first hours ticked by. Officers walked through the apartment looking for signs of a break-in or a struggle. They found nothing. The door had been locked. There was no forced entry, leaving them to question how a child terrified of the dark could slip out unnoticed. Henry's behavior only deepened their suspicion. Rather than stay close to the investigation, he stopped answering his phone. When police finally tracked him down, they discovered he had deliberately parked his maroon Chevrolet sedan 2 blocks away from the station to hide it from plain view. Background checks revealed a predator. Henry had a prior conviction for sexually assaulting a 5-year-old child, a fact that immediately prioritized the case for every detective on the scene. Detectives moved quickly to pull cell phone data for the overnight hours, hoping to track Henry's movements. But the initial pings yielded 0 immediate leads, offering no clear direction on where to search. The police were staring into a massive evidentiary void. They had a prime suspect with a dangerous criminal past and hours of unaccounted time, but they lacked a single piece of physical proof connecting him to the missing girl. Investigators assembled a digital timeline. Surveillance spotted Henry at a gas station at 3:30 a.m. At 4:30 a.m., a fisherman pulled his Impala from a muddy ditch. A cell tower ping confirmed his rural trajectory. Finally, cameras captured him at 7 a.m. buying bleach. This minute-by-minute digital clock effectively cornered the suspect. It documented his movements through rural countries and hardware stores, creating a pattern that directly contradicted the local search he claimed to be conducting. The timeline was soon backed by a chilling human witness. Bria's 8-year-old half-brother DL told investigators he woke up in the middle of the night and heard his father and Bria walking down the stairs. Later that morning, he watched Henry pull a machete from the trunk and wash it down with bleach. 8 months later, fishermen stumbled upon human remains. They lay in an overgrown, murky, isolated pond, the exact area where Henry's car was stuck. Henry's use of bleach, combined with a harsh Iowa winter, meant investigators could not recover a single trace of his DNA from Bria's remains. However, they found heavy, rural soil packed securely against the undercarriage of his sedan. Forensic testing confirmed the dirt was an exact match. The forensic soil match anchored the young boy's traumatic memories and physical reality. Linking the mud on the car to the remote pond consolidated the digital timeline into a specific murder case. By August 2023, Henry Dinkins faced trial. Knowing a jury would immediately learn of his prior sex offenses, his defense team made a strategic move. They waived his right to a jury in favor of a bench trial, a case decided entirely by a judge, bypassing a jury completely. The defense built their strategy around a single glaring absence: physical evidence. They hammered on the fact that despite testing the victim, the clothing, and the suspect's vehicle, the state had found absolutely 0 DNA connecting Henry to Bria. To dismantle the timeline, the defense subjected 11-year-old DL to a brutal cross-examination. They zeroed in on the child's obvious anger toward his father, attempting to paint his testimony as a story born from grief. Under immense pressure, the child snapped. On the stand, DL suddenly claimed he had physically watched Henry shoot his sister, a geographical impossibility given the timeline. The defense used this outburst to argue the entire narrative, including the bleach and the machete, was unreliable. The judge was left to weigh 2 entirely conflicting realities. He had to decide if a meticulously constructed digital clock and a mud match were enough to convict a man, despite a complete lack of DNA and a compromised child witness. 2 weeks later, the judge delivered his verdict. He ruled that the precision of the timeline, combined with the forensic soil match, overwhelmingly defeated the defense's arguments about missing DNA. Henry Dinkins was found guilty of first-degree murder and kidnapping. The judge sentenced him to the rest of his natural life behind bars, without the possibility of parole. For Aisha Langford, the legal victory provided an answer, but it offered no actual peace. She realized that knowing the truth and seeing her daughter's killer locked away would never replace the life that was stolen. The tragedy also left a permanent scar on young DL. At just 8 years old, he had to grapple with the horrifying reality that his own father had murdered his sister, leaving him to carry that psychological burden for life. Meticulous cell pings, security footage, and environmental forensics can trace a killer's steps and secure a conviction. They can ensure a predator never walks free again, but technology can never undo the profound damage inflicted upon a shattered family.